We just launched the audit, the IRS project, less than 2 months ago at Freedom Fest. Our free speech project against the muzzling rule we've spent over 6-7 months on. And we actually have a lot more information on that than we have on the audit, and the audit is just beginning to start. So I'm going to do a drive-by on while we have the audit, and then I'm going to introduce Mr. Johnson. And I have a clinical behavioral psychologist that's my marketing director at Patriot Coalition, and she has told me that I am a P personality. I think outside the box. I live outside the box. My general counsel, that some of y'all met December before last when we did the Article 5 panel, where we had Dr. Vieira, Robert Broadus, myself, Richard Fry, Peter Boyce. Some of this stuff can get so complicated and convoluted that even if you have a good education, it's hard to wrap your mind around it. And we've become a microwave mentality country. You know, you've even heard Rush talk a few years about the drive-by media. We don't think anymore. We just respond to what we're told. Like Pavlov's dog is what they've tried to turn us into. And for, well, in my 11th year as a full-time citizen activist, I don't like the word lobbyist because I've never been paid to lobby. I didn't feel like you should be paid, have to be paid to stand up and speak for what you believe in. We make time for what's important to us. Being a P, I don't like boxes. I don't like being trapped in boxes. I don't like boxy paperwork. I hate spreadsheets. I have no notes. We have, whether it was Fire Coalition, which is Federal Immigration Reform and Enforcement Coalition, or Patriot Coalition, or with People Against the NDAA, we worked extensively with PANDA, fighting against the indefinite detention provisions of the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act. It is so easy to get up into the weeds, and when you start talking about taxes, death and taxes, there's two things that are unavoidable. With all the battles that I've fought in the past decade, I have said you can take our facts to the bank. We all grew up here. You can take it to the bank. It's that solid. You can take it to court. It's that solid. You can take it to church, and it would pass muster in all three places. What we were bringing to the table. That's how much we do our research before we get up and take a stand, a position on any issue. Well, the truth and the facts is all that mattered. That's all we needed was to clear up the confusion about what the truth was. We wouldn't be here tonight. We probably wouldn't have a Donald Trump and a Bernie Sanders that resonated like they did this year in this campaign season. If the truth mattered, it still matters. And if we don't start with the truth, Seville talked about being an immigrant, fleeing oppression and despotism and tyranny growing up. What is necessary for evil to prevail? Good men to do nothing. Well, there are good men in Congress on both sides of the aisle doing nothing. They're more concerned with their own job security than they are with doing what's right. And what Seville said about, it was only 8 years ago that she actually read the Constitution. It was a little bit longer ago than that for me. But even as a veteran, I took that oath. They make you take it like 3 or 4 times in that initial process of going into the military to try and drill it into your head, the importance of the commitment that you're making. and I didn't read it then. I mean, I just skimmed it, like most everybody does, but I didn't actually read it. Well, if you recall, Councilor Fry said, and he's right, to take that oath without a working knowledge of what you are taking an oath to support and defend is perjury. Flat out, perjury. I committed perjury when I took my oath to support and defend the Constitution when I joined the military, because I did not have a working knowledge of it. What happened to the German people? They had a democracy, they had a constitution, they were educated in the arts and the sciences, and yet they got suckered in and duped by the National Socialists. Now, it was actually a fictional book and a fictional character that was trying to explain, and I think the book was written in the early 70s, how did this intelligent, advanced culture get sucked into that? Ask the wrong questions, the answers won't matter. This left-right paradigm, that's the Republicans versus the Democrats, go back and read Washington's farewell address. He begged us, don't go down that path. What did Lincoln say about a nation divided cannot stand? We've heard this over and over and over. Divide and conquer. That's what this partisan crap does. It divides and conquers. This audit thing. Now, if you go look at the About Us, the Patriot Coalition or Fire Coalition, you will find that I am an extremely conservative, well, according to the right, I'm a crazy constitutionalist. According to the left, I am a right-wing nativist extremist. When you get those two groups together, I become a potential domestic terrorist. I'd say I'm Jeff. That's what I prefer. Mention the word audit, and everybody's heart sinks about getting an audit. And me hating boxes, being the outside the box guy, just sitting down and doing my taxes and filling in the boxes aggravates me. When I find out there's 70-some thousand pages of code to even begin to comply with. You can't even find IRS agents that work in the headquarters that can tell you in the code where you're required to even file. It's some circular logic that will take you from one end of that code to the other and back to the beginning. Still if. I mentioned death and taxes. They don't want us talking about death and taxes, accept them. When you go to, I don't know if they serve drinks here or not. What's the two things you're not supposed to talk about in the bar? Religion and politics. What did the Founding Fathers do? They went to the pubs and they talked about religion and they talked about politics. That led to the committees of course. We had the committees of correspondence, committees of safety, committees of association. That led to First Continental Congress. They came up with the Declaration of Independence. Right? We need to talk about death and taxes. We need to talk about religion and politics, honestly and openly. Mm-hmm. What did Jefferson say about religion? He said, it matters not to me if my neighbor says there are 20 gods or none. It's none of his business. That's the way he looked at it. How am I doing? Time-wise, like I said.
5 minutes, 20 seconds, and then you have 5 minutes after that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. We're going to audit the IRS. AuditIRS.com is the website. We launched it at Freedom Fest. One of the things that we're asking for, we're looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything that they do, that our tax collecting agency does, is not bad. They're not all bad. And the people that work there are our fellow citizens. Mm-hmm. They're all human beings. They're not all boogeymen or evil. Some of them are, but not all of them. So part of our audit is not your traditional just fill in the boxes audit that we're going to do. Why do we need an audit? Now, are you going to get into the IRS with me? Since the Lois Lerner scandal broke, between the House and the Senate, there have been probably 100 hearings dealing with this debacle over the past, what, 3 years, roughly? Since January 2015, at least since January 2015, there has been no independent oversight of the IRS. Now, they do have an oversight board that is supposed to be independent, but they don't have enough members to make a quorum, to even hold a meeting. Haven't had that since January of 2015, or December 31st of 14, rather. Why don't we have a quorum? Because the president has nominated replacements? No. Can't put this one in the Obama camp. He reappointed one of the existing members, which you could do, January 1, 2015. Senate has not held a confirmation hearing in almost 2 years for that nomination. He nominated another party on April 15th, tax day 2015. Had the Senate held and confirmed those two people, April tax day last year, we would have at least had enough members of the Internal Revenue Service Oversight Board to do some oversight. I can't tell you how many hearings they've done just since January of 15 on both sides of the aisle. Any of them about fixing this oversight board issue or the oversight of the IRS? No. And I can tell you from all the meetings that we've held over the past 6 months with people on both sides of the aisle, on both sides of the hill, they all know that that independent oversight is dysfunctional. We're going to fix that too eventually. If they won't do an audit, we will. And it was actually Mr. Johnson's brainchild to audit the IRS. Like we didn't have enough on our plate already with the revolution. We launched this at Freedom Fest, July 12th, I think. Number that Seville gave out about the First Amendment Alliance. When we gave her that information, it was around 2 dozen. It's close to 50 now. Part of what we did at with this audit, figure out this pointer here. Congress has done little to hold the IRS accountable. Not a single IRS official, even those who deleted emails and other data, has been indicted or sentenced to prison over the IRS's targeting of nonprofits. No substantial policy or organization changes like those made to the IRS Restructuring and Reform Act of 1998. And that's where the Oversight Board came out of. Was that overhaul in 98, and it actually came into place, was it like 2001, 2002, when they finally put it into place. So for about 14 years, we've had this trial run of independent oversight of the Internal Revenue Service, dysfunctional. So dysfunctional that either the president won't appoint in a timely manner, Congress won't hold hearings in a timely manner, so that for the past 18 months, don't even have enough members to make a quorum. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, inexcusable. That's going to change. Okay? It not only routinely delays and denies requests for information, MUPROC, the Freedom of Information Act filing website, publishes a growing list of FOIAs that IRS has declined in the past 4 years. They include standards for granting nonprofit status to media organizations, their training materials for identifying tax cheats, the form used by private prison giant Corrections Corp. to justify why they should be taxed as real estate investment trust, like a hotel rather than a prison. I mean, I could go on, and this is just a bulleted short list. Our audit is not just going to include, well, you did really cut me short on slides. It's not just the boxy stuff, the numbers. We want to hear from the people about their engagements with the IRS, good, bad, and ugly. When we launched this at Freedom Fest, just that, was it 3 days, 4 days? How many people came up and told their stories or signed up to tell their personal stories?
We had about 60 or so.
About 60 or so? It's now, it's not been under 2 months, and we're right at 100 people that have actually done like John Hancock, put their name out there. We had 2 farmers that were abused by the IRS. One of them got charged extra penalties because they spoke to the media about the abuse. That came out in a hearing. When were we in New York, Dan? Was that May?
Late April.
Late April or May? That testimony was in the House this year in May. The abuse is ongoing. There is no oversight. There's not even a fox watching the hen house. That's going to change. I'm kind of livid about some meetings we had the past 2 days on the Hill that I'm not going to be able to talk about too much tonight, or he won't get to talk at all. But suffice to say, we have been over backwards since President's Day, and that's when we launched publicly, to be available to people on the Hill, on both sides of the aisle, and both sides of the Hill, to get out in front of this problem. I told the people on the Hill, I have the patience of Job, the wrath of Khan, and the love of Jesus in my heart. I sat in a meeting yesterday morning with several lawyers, not by myself, but the TRI team, in Judiciary, House Judiciary. And I told them that. I looked them dead in the eye. Patience of Job, wrath of Khan, love of Jesus in my heart. Which, Jeff, you have to deal with is entirely up to you. Well, most of this year, Job and Jesus have been the strongest influences in my decision making. But the wrath of Khan was the driving force behind the conversations and the meetings we've had on the Hill this week, and it's going south. Not for us, but for them. 15-minute meetings. If you've ever been to the Hill to have meetings, that's the standard slot. We had 3 attorneys, I think, at least 2 out of 3 of them attorneys tied up for a 15-minute meeting yesterday morning. They gave us an hour. We had a meeting today that was supposedly a 15-minute meeting on the Senate. 50, 55 minutes, right in an hour. We have their attention, and they don't like what they're hearing. And part of the problem for them is we mean what we say, and we say what we mean. And we told them up front 6 months ago, we will not lie to you. We have no hidden agenda. We're going to have questions. We expect answers. If you don't know the answer, tell us. We'll take that. If you do know who has the answer, we'd appreciate it if you steer us in the right direction. Do you lie to us, you waste our time, there will be a price to pay. A political price to pay. I read them what I call the Pre-Riot Act. You will find a way to work with us to fix these problems, or your replacements will. And that has been our messaging all year. And that was before we launched the audit. They are on short marching orders from we the people. We do not go in there wringing our hands saying, please do your job. These guys wearing what I've got on, they make a lot of sacrifices. They put in a lot of hours every week, weekends, holidays, away from they're all of us, away from our homes, away from our families, because this is important. If we don't stand up and fight for liberty, it's going to be gone. You remember what Reagan said about we're only one generation away from sitting on your porch telling your kids or grandkids what it used to be like to live in America as a free man? Welcome to that day. But there is hope. And he's going to tell you about it. Because as busy as I was with Patriot Coalition and Fire Coalition, and advising and consulting several other groups I work with, I got a phone call from an 18-year-old alerting me about a piece of legislation in Congress that I wasn't aware of. And called me out of the blue to sound the alarm, you know, about this bad bill. And I looked into it, and it's like, you know what? It looks like he's right. So I called my lawyer, our general counsel, Mr. Fry, and had him review it. And yeah, he's right. And I'm like, okay, 18-year-old called this. Where's these baby boomers? Where's the generation of, I'm a trailing edge baby boomer. Where's all these people that I've been working with for all these years? Why haven't I heard about this from one of the adults in the room? The 18-year-old looked like he was 12 at the time. But he was right. I had people step up and invest time and money in me when I first got out of my chair to get active. Took me under their wing. Saved me a lot of heartache and time and stress and trouble as an activist. You can't pay it back. You can only pay it forward. I will never be able to pay those people back. Can't pay it forward. I invest my time and money in people that are worth investing in. Mr. Johnson was one of them. I made time to take his calls, answer his questions. And there were times when he disagreed with me vehemently. He wanted to throw things across the room. Did. But he would call me back later. It might be a day, a week, a month. You were right. And I didn't rub it in his face. There's a learning curve getting involved in your governance and civic engagement. He made a good student. He's now my boss. That's what I call him, boss. There's other folks here. Evan is doing some great work as a citizen activist at his age. And I guess he's now a capitalist pig too. Is he getting a job now? Not, you know, just a professional student anymore. Gainfully, hopefully. When Mr. Johnson was tapped on the shoulder after he had launched Panda, People Against NDA, out of his college dorm room, and he eventually realized that his time was better spent not sitting in an indoctrination chamber in Bowling Green, Ohio, that he could do more with his life and his education outside of the formal. Now he's a homeschooled Eagle Scout up till he went, I think he did maybe some formal public high school a little bit maybe, or none of that. Straight from homeschooled Eagle Scout to liberal hell at the universities. But he has a good foundation, good parents, good upbringing. Eagle Scout, that alone should tell you a lot about this young man. I have a semi-photographic memory. I'll forget everybody's names. I'll never forget your face. He will never forget your name. And most of your faces. And I'm sure There's some other young people in your lives, whether it's your children, your grandchildren, 1 or 2 or 3 generations away, that are worth investing time in. Or we will be 1 generation away from nobody to even sit on the porch to tell their kids what it used to be like to live in a free America. Congress has a limited time to get off their butts and get out in front of protecting our free speech. Mr. Johnson is going to tell you a lot about that. We have a ton of information. Some of it's it's like drive-by information, almost what we've shared with you that's on the tables, and we had even more. We could put together thick information packets. We've got a lot more information coming. If you go to taxrevolution.us, that is our parent site, auditirs.com. You're going to speak about the First Amendment Alliance, which is now up to right around 50. Instead of, it was around 24 members, Mr. Casella, is that right? Around 50 now? And what we told them on the Hill today, because when you see the diversity of the coalition for the First Amendment Alliance that we've put together so far, it's, does this one work too? No. TRI is the most nonpartisan. I need my hands for this. It is the most nonpartisan organization fighting for real tax reform you're going to find. I don't agree with everybody that I work with at TRI on every issue, but we are doing what the founders did and what they said you have to do at some point. Put your differences aside and work together for the common good. They did that. We can restore constitutional governance if we do that. And the closer we walk in their footsteps, the easier it will be. We have Democrats, we have Coffee Party, Tea Party, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Independents, unaffiliated. Everybody from the Hells Angel to the church lady is who we the people are. Even our colors. There is no left-right paradigm. There is no divide and conquer of the revolution, of the Tax Revolution Institute. Mr. Johnson, if you don't get up here, I'm going to keep talking. So I got a lot to say. Our Executive Director at Tax Revolution Institute, Mr. Dan Johnson. The boss.